I will be there. You ready? Okay, thank you for coming tonight. We're going to call the Tuesday, March 21st City Council meeting to order. If you would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the first is Joe. Can you hear us, Joe?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. All right, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. This is approve the amended agenda. If I could get a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next item is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I will also make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
And I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Carried. Okay, next item is open forum. This is the time for public to make a comment. You give you 5 minutes to make a comment on anything you wish to address the council with. If it's on the agenda, you'll be given time at that point when that's up. So is there public comment is open? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. The second item under open forum is Lakes Area Food Shelf, an update. Thank you.
We go. Well, hello, good evening, happy spring. Doesn't look like it, does it? Thank
No.
you, Mayor Ryan and council for listening to me tonight. I'm Jean Kraft and I'm on the board of the Lakes Area Food Shelf. Thank you for giving us time during your agenda. I see it's very busy. So last year we were pretty extensive and gave you a lot of past and present history of the Lakes Area Food Shelf. Tonight, I'm just going to give you a brief snapshot of what's happening right now and the exciting future ahead for the food shelf and the friends and neighbors that we serve from our area. So first, on behalf of our executive director, Kathy Adams, the entire board, and our dedicated crew of volunteers, we again thank the city of Nisswa for its impactful donation of $25,000 in 2022. To recap how we used those dollars, in 2021, we saw 4,657 visits to the food shelf. Keep that number in mind. In 2022, that number jumped to 10,978 visits, with 564 new families served compared to 151 in 2021. Already in 2023, we have seen a 45% increase in the number of visits over this time period from last year. And you may have read an article yesterday in the Star Tribune that said Minnesota food shelves statewide are seeking a boost in donations as demands for help rises to record levels. This is due in part to many things, but one specific cause could be that COVID-19 federal aid payments are subsiding. Since our last presentation to the council, the board and the staff have been busy. The Lakes Area Food Shelf held community focus groups and one-on-one meetings with businesses, social services, educators, medical facilities, donors, and those who regularly frequent the food shelf to gather valuable information for our first time ever 2025 strategic plan. Never have had one in 42 years of existence. We developed our core values, and I'd like to read those to you. To be non-judgmental to all who seek assistance, to be approachable for all, to be principled in our service delivery and decision-making, and to be respected stewards of resources. Plus, we're pretty excited about this, that blueprints are being drawn up right now to expand our physical building space to include a community resource hub concept. While retaining that our core program is to provide healthy and nutrient-rich food, we'll also provide space to bring a network of direct service providers to assist our friends and neighbors with the barriers they face beyond hunger. Things like transportation, housing, and heating assistance, and many others. Crow Wing County Social Services are already on board, and it's hoped that if the snow ever leaves, construction will start soon. And speaking of nutritious food, another fun fact about the Lakes Area Food Shelf, we are presently working with 10 local farmers to provide fresh produce to our friends and neighbors. And we are seeing more and more physicians from our area and other medical professionals urging participation by their patients to come and use the food in the food shelf. So I come to you tonight to ask the city of Nisswa to consider contributing during the 2024 budget cycle, as it is our understanding that it isn't included in the 2023. But I'd also like to encourage you as individuals to consider a personal donation to the Lakes Area Food Shelf, especially right now during the March Food Share campaign, when donations carry an additional matching punch, or you can really donate anytime. And of course, we invite you to stop by for a firsthand look at the food shelf anytime you would like to. Because of the generosity of our communities, we feed people. No judgments, no shame, no feeling that they're taking something that doesn't belong to them. Only friendship, food, and support. So I want to thank all of you for caring about the people that you and we serve. Thank you for considering a future donation, either as the city of Nisswa or individually. And just as a reminder for people that are listening and interested, the Lakes Area Food Shelf is open every Tuesday and Thursday from 9 till noon and Wednesdays from 3 to 6. We are fortunate because there are many food shelves, some that are right here in our area that are only open a couple times a month. We are located on Patriot Avenue, just south of downtown Pequot Lakes, on the grounds of Grace United Methodist Church. So I would entertain any questions or comments you might have, or I'll bring them back to our executive director, Kathy, if I can't answer them.
Anyone? Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much, Ms.
Thanks
Graff.
for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on open forum is a Bladec update. Tyler Glenn.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Tyler Glenn, I'm the Executive Director of the Brainerd Lakes Area Economic Development Corporation, or BLADEC as we're known. I wanted to come and give an update, which we typically do on an annual basis. Administrator Max and I had met and discussed me coming and giving a presentation to you about BLADEC and the things that we're doing. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your continued support of the work that we do. We provide economic development services for all of our communities located within Crow Wing County. Obviously, I do have boundary limits with Crow Wing County, but we do stretch into Southern Cass for certain activities, but most of those revolve around housing and the need for housing in our communities. Just a little overview on the work that we do. We contribute to the vitality and prosperity of the entire Brainerd Lakes area by creating increased employment opportunities, economic stability. Our staff works together with area businesses and government leaders to foster the creation of new jobs, attract new industry to the region, assist small area businesses with their growth and development needs, and provide services for expansion, relocation, and startups. We are also a satellite office for the North Central Small Business Development Corporation, which is the SBDC. They work and provide consulting services free of charge to any businesses that need their assistance, and their primary offices are located at Central Lakes College. There are 11 small business development centers throughout the state of Minnesota. The North Central Small Business Development Center operates in 11 counties. Myself, along with Allison Medic, who's on our staff, are both consultants for the SBDC. So this is important work to the core of what we're doing. So that's just another service that We formally contracted with them last year, and we continue that contracted service into 2023. We have, we're pretty unique when it comes to economic development organizations. We have multiple services which we provide to our businesses and those memberships and our communities that support us. We have a recruitment program. Our recruitment program is one run by our workforce director, who is Mike Bierkness. Mike has 6 years with our organization providing recruitment services to our memberships. Through this service, Mike is responsible for hiring management level individuals for our companies, management level and up. And through the 6 years of his program, he has hired and brought over 100 people to our businesses and to our community in Crow Wing County. We also have a unified fund. Our unified fund is dollars that we created a small development organization, a local development organization, which we pulled funds private that were state funds and federal dollars that were sitting in our communities and sitting dormant. And by creating a local development organizations, we were able to pool that money into one single funding source. So we become a gap funder, and we can provide gap funds for businesses looking to grow and expand. We have accumulated $3.8 million when the fund started 5 years ago. We've provided 21 loans to businesses over these 5 years. We've put out about $1.8 million in funds. We currently have a balance on in our unified fund of about $500,000. Things did slow down through the pandemic, which we kind of knew there was a lot of money out there. Rates were low, so did not have a lot of demand on our fund to provide those type of dollars to our businesses, but that is ramping back up. We have a handful of requests that are in the pipeline right now. So hoping that we'll be able to get more of that money back out and provide obviously additional services to our businesses that need that type of funding help. So those two services alone are very unique to economic development. Typically, those programs don't exist inside of an economic development organization. So we're proud that we have them. Gives us the ability to provide extra services that wouldn't typically be available. Some of the other things that we're working on, as all of you know, housing and childcare are two very big issues that we face, not only in Crow Wing County, but throughout the state of Minnesota. The housing shortage, which was identified in a 2020 or 2019, it was published in 2020, a housing study that was performed by the Crow Wing County HRA. That housing study tells us that based on that number, we're about 4,800 units short by the year of 2030. And that is both on a multifamily, so multifamily and single family homes. And again, that report was finalized at the end of 2019. It was published and available for public consumption in 2020. It was probably outdated the second it hit their desks. So it's interesting, but we know that this is a problem throughout our county, but we also understand this is a problem throughout the state. We're working with our organizations, with the Housing and Redevelopment Authority and the county, obviously, to try and address this problem, try and attract developers to areas that can handle development and can manage it. Workforce housing or affordable housing, there's a couple different names for it, is obviously a pretty hot button right now, but trying to keep those costs low is very challenging. But we're talking to developers on a regular basis, and all of our communities that we work with are all trying to address the same problem. We're here to help address that problem. I know that when Administrator Max and I met, that was one of the topics of conversation, is how do we continue to add what we would look for as affordable housing into our communities. We'll continue to work on that. There's some bills that are going through the state right now that are potentially going to address that. But again, we have to work pretty hard to attract those dollars outside of the metro area. Typical funding, it's about a 65-35 split is what any good lobbyist will tell you, where 35% of the funding goes to the other 80 counties in the state of Minnesota, 65% stays in the 7-county metro. So as we try to attract those dollars, what can get to us is really very important, and we hope that we can use those dollars to pool with other funding that we have. The Housing and Redevelopment Authority right now has $1.2 million in a housing trust fund. That housing trust fund should be used to address this and provide 0% interest loans to developers that are trying to solve this problem. And the county continues to fund that on a year in, year out basis. The last thing I'll just talk to you quickly about is childcare, and childcare is, we performed a study in 2021 trying to identify what our growing and demanding needs for childcare are in Crow Wing County. I will tell you, as of 3 months ago, when our most recent study came out from First Children's Finance, it identifies that there's 1,200 slots of childcare short in Crow Wing County. The number exceeds over 60,000 at the state level. But when we look at a county of 65 to 66,000 people, and we certainly know that 1,200 is probably a number that's short. The pandemic cost us 43 in-home childcare facilities. 43 in-home childcare facilities closed during the pandemic. And when we think about that in each household, single family or single provider, I believe they're licensed up to either 10 or 12 kids. So it's a pretty scary thing that we're dealing with right now. I'm safe to say right now that we are last year we administered an $800,000 grant program through Crow Wing County. And that program created probably 200 slots by the time it's all said and done. We did have some money that came back into that. So we will be opening that pool up again for grants for those that are willing to open up and create childcare slots. So we have opportunities out there, but again, we're just scratching the surface. We hope to continue to move this needle, and we'll continue to work on that. The thing that's keeping us from attracting good employees and people into our communities is a housing shortage and a childcare shortage. We know that, and we're trying very hard to address that, and we'll continue to do that with the support that we receive from all of you. So with that, I will stop. I don't want to drag this out too much longer. I know that some of my neighbors and friends are here. I thought they were here to listen to me, Mayor, but I guess they're not. So, but any questions that you guys have for me, I'm happy to address them. I will continue to work with your administrator, obviously, on pressing needs and things that we can hopefully help Nisswa. I'm a resident here, so I want to see growth but I want to see proper growth.
So, I mean, the council, we've been discussing this for some years about development, workforce, housing, however you want to put it. But we don't have water. We don't have city water. How does that impact a developer who wants to put in some housing that's more affordable, or a business that wants to come in and put in a business? I mean, my assumption is that would be high on their list.
It is, and it's going to drive the price, obviously. If you have a single family development that's going to go in, say, somewhere in this community without water there, you're going to have well systems. It's going to just increase the price of the lot. So trying to keep that price down and how we address infrastructure is one of the biggest things that we're working on right now. How do we get water to these areas? How do we provide funding or find the dollars to potentially assist the city? Is it a county match? Is it a state match? Is there something we can do to help with that infrastructure cost, where maybe there's dollars out there that can cover half of that cost? If you can cover half of that cost, maybe the developer absorbs the other half. We had a project, I'll just give one example. We had a commercial project in Pequot Lakes that was, the mayor's here, so he's going to probably call me on this and he can see me. So no, when XL Energy decided to put their regional location in the heart of the Good Life development in Pequot Lakes, they bought 5 acres. The road did not extend. The road extended to them on a east-west, but they needed to run it a portion of that road to the north and south. There was a grant at the state level that we applied for that covered half of that cost of that infrastructure. That helps a project like that get off the ground. So there are funds out there. There's great resources. We work with a number of organizations that will help us find those grants. If that's something that is stalling a development, definitely get us to the table.
Yeah, I think we've run into a few roadblocks. So, I mean, if there's any assistance you guys can give, if that's the direction we want to go, in the future, I mean, it would be greatly appreciated, because I mean, Jenny can attest to this too, others, that we're just running into roadblocks when it comes to, we know we need water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you just get those roadblocks put in. So, okay, that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah, the funding that's in some of this housing funding that we're seeing, I'm reading the initial bills on this right now. there's good money that's potentially going to get out to help address some of this. But again, I don't know how much of it is going to get to greater Minnesota. That's going to be our concern. And we have lobbyists, not for us, but our economic development organizations that are working on this saying, you know, you have 80 counties that are outside of that 7-county metro. They need assistance as well. You don't need to put it in St. Cloud and Duluth and Moorhead and Rochester and Mankato. Get it to some of these smaller communities. We're the 18th largest county in the state of Minnesota. There should be dollars out there for a county that continues to grow.
Is there something, I got one more. Is there something that you would like to at least present to us right now that we should all take under consideration when we're working with Jenny on development of city of Nisswa when it comes to affordable housing or residential, multi-storied, duplex, et cetera? Is there something that you'd recommend for us to get to work on this year so we can start addressing some of these similar problems that Bladeck is trying to tackle that city of Nisswa can immediately impact?
Great question. I would tell you, I think for me, it boils down to identifying the appropriate area. You know, is there an appropriate area in this community, you know, that you would welcome development? Is there an area that I don't know that the city themselves owns any land? If they do, I don't know if they do. I don't think
We have lots.
So as you look at that, you know, that's something that helps drive, if the city happens to own something like that, that helps drive down the cost of a development. You know, the challenge here, Councilman Zahn, I'll tell you this, is that honestly, it is providing incentives to developers. It's a slippery slope. It really is. And when you're using public dollars to potentially assist a development that potentially would drive the cost of a lot down, the challenge comes with that is that the other side of this is saying you're incentivizing a developer to make more money.
Yep.
So the challenges come with that. And that's where if the city happens to own property, it lessens that visibility to that. But once you can identify a area that you want to grow in this city, then we can get to work on what services, what incentives are out there. Where can we find the dollars to assist movement of a project? You know, the infrastructure is the biggest barrier typically when it comes to developing a new area. It's getting the roads there. It's getting the sewer there. It's doing those types of things. The water is always going to be a concern, but the sewer is a concern. The roads are a concern. You know, if we can help with that, keeping the price of that lot down to make it affordable. And we'll argue probably all day long as to what is affordable, but it's still to build a multifamily facility in a community like this. We're pricing a couple of them out right now and they're in the $10 to $12 million range for 65 units. So any help that we can get to lessen that cost is going to be extremely beneficial.
We've ran into multiple headwinds when we've been trying to go down this path of having city water, and a lot of the projects that we all discuss amongst ourselves or with the city staff, it's different departments. It's all boils down to getting the proper funding, and the funding for us based off our demographics, it can be difficult. We have obviously a very rich area land wise for what it's now inflated this market value of our entire real estate to now be over $1 billion for the first time ever. Pre-pandemic, 600 range, I believe, Jenny. So you're talking almost a 35% increase in the real estate. Then the property tax values with the incomes associated with the families, it's very difficult for us to do that. You're not unfamiliar with that, I know.
I have not.
Now, with our push with our state representatives, our local congressman, Pete Stauber, our 2 state senators, they can advocate as much as they want, but then we are still faced with those headwinds, and having this city water project, we've identified as a backbone to being able to get many of these other projects to go through and come to fruition. And then there's that land issue. Once again, we don't have much. This city is comprised of 18.36 square miles, and a lot of it is lakeshore.
Yeah. And it's, if you get to that point of bonding and what does that look like for a total project? I know we chatted about it briefly. It's, what would it take? What's the number that it would take to put water throughout this city and throughout the city limits?
$10 to $40 million.
Yeah, it's a big number. So bonding for that is is a big ask, but
So there's,
if you can do it in pieces, maybe that's an easier, I don't know where it's most appropriate to get to, but yeah, we're definitely aware of issues like that in a lot of our communities. You're not any different than
Right.
many of them, to be honest, but anything that you guys look at and say, this is a path that we want to go down, you know, letting Administrator Max know that, or you guys reaching out to me individually, that's fine too. We're gonna turn over every stone to see what we can find. And again, I'm a little bit more driven here because I live here, so it helps probably push me a little bit farther and faster, but I've got a great staff. You know, I'm very fortunate to have great employees that'll help us do a lot of these things, and we want to make sure that we're helping everybody that supports us. So happy to do so.
yeah, as do we. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate
guys
it.
very much.
Thank you, Tyler.
Okay, next item, report, city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Good evening, members of the council. Good evening, everyone. Glad to see you all here tonight. I have my written report in your packet. Just wanted to highlight that we are nearing the initiation of both our roundabout and our trail projects. Trees will likely be coming down next week for the projects, and then they will set for construction start mid-May sometime, depending on road restrictions and everything else for the timeline. There are websites up and running for both projects. Mailers have been sent out to those immediately along the impacted by the projects, but we have extra copies we're gonna push out across the chamber. You know, any other community areas, we have extras. We're gonna start to get those out here and then over the next month, and hopefully get good information out to everyone and keep that updated.
I have a request in regards to the actual websites themselves.
Yeah.
I heard from some local constituents in regards to requests for scheduling and understanding of project start, project completion. I think if we were able to have WSN include that on both projects on the websites, that'll probably give a lot of local residents ease, especially with the detours that are going to be to come. So I think if that could be accommodated, that would be appreciated by.
Yes, we did discuss that with Anderson Brothers, who's the contractor for both projects yesterday, and we have a pre-construction meeting mid-April, and they will know better based on timing of springtime and all of those components, what that looks like, and we'll make sure to get that out in plenty of time for any impacts.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Otherwise, I do have a couple of items under new business, or I'll stand for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay. Hope any questions, anyone? Okay. City attorney is not here tonight. He had a conflict, so that's fine. City engineer.
I don't have anything other than what Jenny has just mentioned.
Okay.
If you've got any more questions, I'll be happy to entertain them, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions for city engineer? None? Okay. Under new business, first item is a resolution for a direct property purchase. So I would, if everyone had a chance to look at this, this is for the trail. Okay, so I'd entertain, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution for the direct property purchase for the Blake area, Blake person, property, and as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item is the same. It's a resolution for direct property purchase. This is Diedrich's. I would entertain a motion unless.
So moved, as presented.
I'll
Second by Fraley. Any further discussion, question? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And item number 3 is a resolution for direct purchase from Johnson Yankee property.
I so move.
I'll
And I'll-
second.
Okay,
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. The next item is the recommendation from Public Works Committee reference recycling center. What we're gonna do on this is we are going to have staff do their presentation. Then we're going to have council questions. And when that is completed, we'll open it up for public comment. Tom?
Excuse me. So really the first item we have to deal with are, well, there's two items, actually. There's two recommendations that came from our Public Works Committee. One was to relocate the recycling site to our gravel pit site near our wastewater treatment plant. That was a unanimous recommendation. The other one was a recommendation to approve a curbside recycling ordinance. Now, as I understand it, we have to have a public hearing for that item, so that will come at a later meeting. But basically, that was unanimous as well, recommending a curbside recycling ordinance to go along with the relocation. I think with that, what questions do you have?
Mark?
Yeah.
Start on this end.
Yeah. I think I know the answer, but last month's city council meeting, we approved the minutes from the Public Works meeting, and at that Public Works meeting, it was your preliminary suggestion. Well, let me look at it this way. Public Works Committee meeting took a look at draft curbside recycling ordinance and briefly discussed the location of the recycling facility. No recommendation to the council was made. I'd like to see that, but I know that's in due time coming up there. We will likely discuss at the February Public Works Committee meeting what month we will figure out and recommend a final location for the facility. Your preliminary suggestion is that the meeting take place in 2 years. So if I understand that correctly, that first we want to put in the curbside ordinance, see how it works, correct? And then from there, figure out one, I know the recycling's got to move. We either have to move the recycling or get rid of it. That's how I look at it. So what I'd like to do is get an ordinance from Public Works on the curbside recycling, curbside pickup. And I think if with the last meeting, Public Works meeting, the haulers, it would take some time for them to get bins and so forth. So they would like to see that as soon as possible to get that ordinance in. So if we could get that in and then see how that goes, see if, what is the need for the recycling center? Do we still need it? And if so, what size? So like if we got an ordinance in this fall so that they could start doing the curbside this winter, I would like to see us to relook at this in the fall of 2024, just to see if, yes, we need a recycling center and to what size before we proceed to move it. And where it will be right now, we're looking at out by the gravel pits, which in my opinion, that might be the best place for it. I know that staff has looked at other places. I know one piece of property was very, very expensive for us to buy, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So instead of $175,000 approximately for the redo of the recycling center, we'd be close to $600,000. Am I close in those numbers?
That's reasonably close, yes.
All right. But so in my opinion, I would like to see the ordinance come through, get that implemented, and then wait about a year before we decide size and scope of the recycling center. Does that make sense?
I understand why you think that. So, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but the site right now is way over capacity. So it's busting out of the seams as is. Curbside recycling won't totally fix that. Right now, about half of our recycling comes from residents from within this city of Nisswa. The rest are either seasonal, people that are passing through, tourists or whatever, and in the area residents that are using it. So curbside recycling will only affect Nisswa residents. So if you say that's 50%, curbside recycling has the potential to reduce the volume by about 25%. So 25% of that 50%, it becomes a pretty small number. So I don't expect it to shrink it down to where we are within the boundaries of what we want the recycling to be at its existing location. So it has to move to a site somewhere. The only site that the city currently owns is at the site we've proposed out by the wastewater treatment plant.
And I don't think I'm the only council member that has the opinion that it needs to move. And I do think that at the last meeting, it was brought up that the movement of the recycling center, I think we put that back out onto Public Works to do that in your last meeting. So yes, I would just like to see how the curbside goes and what reduction, if any, will be there. And the other thing too is if it's moved, then my hope would be the majority of the users would be residents. Is that going to happen? No.
I don't know how you would enforce that, but that's,
I have a way.
there's ideas, but there's a lot of moving parts to that, so.
All right.
Joe, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, do you have questions for Tom? Comments?
No, I don't believe I have any questions. Tom, I guess one thing just to clarify for everybody in the room, the current haulers for our current location, they are dumping on a daily basis, correct? And they are unwilling to continue that daily service for us in the future. They themselves, as our haulers, are telling us we have to do something also, correct?
Yeah, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I do know that last summer they were hauling 7 days a week.
Okay.
And that's unsustainable.
Right.
Just like everybody else, they have a labor crunch. And it causes us to pay more too for that service if they have to come 7 days a week.
Correct.
Is that it, Joe?
Yeah, I don't have any more questions unless somebody has a question for me.
Eric. Yes, Eric. Where I came up with that one.
Yes.
You're Eric now.
I have a pretty strong opinion on many matters, but this one is pretty straightforward, I think. There's an obvious issue with a detriment to our emergency services in which we offer through the city, in which all the citizens within the city of Nisswa utilize our fire department for life-saving services. We have an overabundance of inflow summer traffic from tourism. We assist nearby towns via contract. We know without a doubt that this has to be relocated from this current fire department back lot. And that's an easy assessment in which I have a strong opinion on. I have another strong opinion on the fact in which recycling, just among many other things, is an option for people to do, an option for people to play their part in having a greener, more renewable-like environment. I'm in the business of renewables. I build large-scale utility scale solar farms. I don't always preach that I overly believe in it, but what I do understand is that there is a greater good for it, and we provide a lot of jobs. I don't, though, understand how we can consciously expend time and resources to go out of our way with, again, the limited land that we have within the city of Nisswa, to take some of that land and convert it to a recycling center with what we have right now. There are a lot of things in the works that will take multi-years to develop, that will have ramifications for what current land use will be what future land use will be. I also really don't understand some of the additional justifications for the recycling center. I'm a member at the Lakeshore Gun Club and have been most of my life. Takes me an extra 5 minutes to drive down 77 to get over there and go discharge a couple of rounds. Additionally, an impound lot, yes, City of Nisswa and the police department, I have to imagine, do have a significant need for that, whether it's towed on city property or it's towed outside of the city of Nisswa. And then the compost is, each city normally has that, but not each city to our size has the ability with the land shortage that we have. I think in the time frame in which we have such economic uncertainty and serious concerns from not just our municipality, but from the state, from the federal level and beyond, we must be conscious with the dollars in which we're trying to justify expending before we go about spending those said dollars. I would rather have it be an choice decision for those who would like to recycle to have the option to be able to recycle. I know I'm offered that option from my carrier at my home down Tall Timbers, and I elect not to. It's an additional $20 or $25 for my carrier to have an additional bin and then be picked up on a different rotation from my normal garbage each week. I choose not to because I don't want to spend the additional dollars. I recycle at times, there's times I don't recycle. But what I do know is that if a person has the ability and the decision and the will to recycle, there's other options outside of just our city. Brainerd's not that far away. Baxter's not that far away. Hate to ask somebody to go and bring their recycling elsewhere. Trash is a totally different topic, but again, recycling is something that individuals choose to do. To spend, I'm just going to round up $500,000. If I'm going to spend $500,000, I want to make sure I'm justifying why I'm spending $500,000, and this is not my money. This is none of our money. This is these individuals' money. Monies that they're going to be expending through their own paychecks, through increase in taxes, in which we just imposed unfortunately, larger tax levy this past year. And that stings. That stings. We have another federal rate increase coming up this week, in which a quarter basis point will hike again, and we may see a couple additional bank collapses by the end of this week. Individuals in this room and beyond, retirement accounts will start to trickle in and be affected. That's my long ramble as to why I'm in a strong opinion in which I'd rather have each individual have the choice for curbside pickup, get on board with our local carriers to make sure that this is something that they can feasibly do. Can they go get a truck to be able to accommodate this pickup, to get these additional bins? I can't get a lot of things for my business for 2-3 years. I also know that 50% of our local citizens are the ones dumping at that site. I don't need to pay for Jack and John. We don't need to pay for Jack and John coming down from Blaine, Minnesota, or coming up from Blaine or the Twin Cities for the weekend and dropping their 24 pack of cans off there because, well, thanks for doing the good thing, but that's not just there for your convenience. I really don't see that this is something that I can approve to push forward from my good conscience. I also haven't had conversations nor heard from the police department in regards to the firing range, in regards to the impound lot. I already made my point clear on how there's some potential remedy to those issues, and with the limited land that we have, and that being the most utility type land use over there that we have on Lower Roy Lake, I just cannot see this thing going through on my end. So I have no more questions.
Okay, as far as being,
Oh, seriously.
as far as being, I'm on the Public Works Committee, and how this all came about, I think we should clarify about what's being presented here. As the whole discussion began with the idea that the county was eliminating a lot of the recycling centers in Crow Wing County. And currently they provide half of what we pay for recycling, roughly $70,000 total. We pitch in about $35,000 a year. So, and originally this started up in, and correct me, Tom, if I'm ever wrong in what I'm saying here. What we, initially this started up at the Pickle, I understand, it's a long time ago. And as it started up, it wasn't a very good place to have it. So it got moved to behind the fire hall area. Since then, with the county eliminating a lot of the recycling centers, and then they threatened, or not threatened, but they suggested that they may not provide that other half. So then the city of Nisswa would pay for all of the recycling. Now, the reasons for the recycling center to be there in the first place, that's way beyond my time. But as far as the issue at hand right now is that the recycling center, especially in the summertime, is just being plain overwhelmed. And our hauler that's currently handling this is doing a very good job. They're trying their best, but they are getting overwhelmed. There's not enough space to move around. It's just, it's outgrown the location that it's at. So at the meeting that we had last year about this, we had a lot of good suggestions from the community as to what we could do. And the idea was first presented, let's move it out to the gravel pit area or to the wastewater treatment area. But the ideas that came up were, why don't we try to, first of all, let's do a survey. Let's find out from the public, what do they want? And that survey was very enlightening in many ways, because it stated that 80% of the community wanted to keep it, keep recycling. They did not want to get rid of it if it stays at the same site. And then there was also a general, I just me in general, that most people do want to keep recycling, is the other idea. So the idea was then, what can we do? And the first one was to try to expand their current site, expand into the woods there behind the future city planning, city park area. Well, that unfortunately we've discovered during this period, and this was sort of buried in paperwork from a long time ago, that we could not use that land for such a purpose. We would have to get permission from the state and county and the state. Well, no, the state, I think it is. Yeah. And they said, it's possible. We might be able to do that. We went ahead and pursued that avenue. They said it's possible, but then you'd have to buy some other property to replace what you utilized. So then that means that, okay, well then, is there an area within the city? Because many of the respondents wanted to have it in the city. Because they say that they go shopping after that. It's very convenient type thing. Well, we looked at properties in the city, and like what you said, Mark, it is very expensive. The property that's not too far from there, which really isn't large enough to do that anyway, is hundreds of thousands of dollars in addition to developing it. So we're trying to figure out, well, then there's the American Legion. We wrote to them and asked them if they would be able to help us with this and to utilize their property for such an area. That's not too far from downtown, but and understandably, they decided no against that because they need to have that property for their future use. So if those were the main areas that we had talked about as far as how the suggestions that we got, what can we do? How can we work this? In addition to that, we were waiting for the master plan for the city park to see what would be coming up as well. And according to the new drawings in the proposal, The tennis court would be right next to it. And then there's the pickleball courts as well. So to have that down there, first of all, it can't stay where it is right now. In the wintertime, it's not too bad, but the summertime, I go there, I use it all the time. And you can be in a lineup, especially in the summertime, and you just see it, just mountains of it. We need more space. So then the options come down to, okay, we can't buy, at least currently, we can't buy property. It's very expensive. The other would be then to take it out to the gravel pit. So then this last meeting that we had, that was agreed. And all it is to move the recycling center. It didn't address the impound or the shooting range. That was something else. That's something else to be discussed about. Now, this will take time too. We won't be able to do this very quickly because this is just a recommendation to take it out to the city or to the wastewater treatment. You want to say something?
I was just gonna say, it's just to confirm that that was a site we would use when we're ready to move it.
I'm sorry?
It was mostly to confirm that that was a site we're going to use when we move it. We're not approving the project, we're just approving the location.
Yeah, just the location itself. That's all that was approved by the Public Works for the City Council. So otherwise, the other option is to eliminate what you were talking about, Jesse. We have the curbside recycling. The idea of the curbside recycling was brought up at that time as well, in the hopes that it could reduce the amount of recyclables being put into the recycling center. And maybe we could make it last longer. But again, with the way the recycling centers are being shut down currently, and it's been expanding roughly, I believe it was 20% a year. I forget. 15. It's just 15% each year. And it's getting more and more used that way. So one way is to eliminate what you're saying, Jesse, just have the curbside recycling. One things I was mentioned too about the curbside recycling is that it's not going to necessarily reduce traffic on the roads. And I know at the Lower Lake Road, there's issues about the traffic. Curbside recycling going down those roads, well, the trucks will be going down those roads too. So, but anyway, as far as the current site, either we move it, and that's what the recommendation is, to move it out to the wastewater treatment area, and this was not part of what we had recommended, or eliminate it completely. And according to the survey, there are very few people who really just plain want to eliminate it. So that's all.
John. Sorry, this is Joe.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I thought we were just asking questions earlier. I just want to make a couple comments. I read everybody's letter that sent in concern on the letter. And one thing, after listening to everybody here too, the survey that went out early on. And of course, I'm the new person to the council, but in reading everybody's letter, I think a couple of things that need to be addressed. First is that the question, do you want it left there? That gave, I'll say, false hope to people that was going to be a final answer on, do you want it left there? Like Mark explained, after further research based upon that information, it was then found out that we cannot leave it there. And so I just wanted to clarify that point, that the survey was used to dig further into retrieving that information on if we could leave it there or not leave it there, and not give the false hope that it was going to be left there. And I think that's, after reading a lot of the letters, the comments, I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And so as behalf of the city, I apologize to anybody that gave false hope to, that they were saying, yes, that was going to be for sure a viable option to have done there. Secondly, I agree with what Jesse said. and I guess I'm looking for anybody in the room, council members or anybody further that wants to talk. I'm very much in favor of the curbside pickup. I'm looking for a great answer to why we need both the curbside pickup and separate location. I would say the curbside location would be the preferred method, kind of keeps costs down for the city. Future cost, in my opinion, it just eliminates a lot of hassle. And so I'm just looking for some reason why we'd want to keep it. If it does need to be kept, over there at the pit is the best location for it. If it's out of sight, it's with everything else industrial that the city has going on there. I also live on the road. In fact, I own the land adjacent to that. And so this is going to affect nobody in that room more than myself, because I guarantee you people will turn down my driveway looking to recycle when they don't know where they're going. I guarantee you I'm going to get garbage in my woods. But at the end of the day, it's not all about me. And so I would vote no, personally, but for the city, for the best financial use, that is the best location for it. But right now I'm in Jesse's camp on why do we even really need this if we're going to do curbside. The other thing also too, I want to remind people is that this is a free service to the city, free. You're not being charged to drop off your recycling there. And I don't know, I would just evaluate the concerns based upon something that the city is trying to do to better both the environment and the community, and just dig deep if providing this free service creates such heartburn with some people. But that's my opinion right now. And so, Mayor, back to you.
Okay. I'm gonna try and be as brief as I can be. I think curbside is a no-brainer. I think we have to pass it, and I think we need to move forward with it. We can approve it tonight. That's fine, but there has to be other procedures that take place, and it will and then we have to figure out a curbside recycling would be in place, and then when does it actually start? I've talked to the haulers. I've talked to, one hauler, and if they ordered a truck today, they're 12 to 14 or possibly more months out to get a truck. They would need to get another vehicle in order to provide that service here. I don't know if the other haulers are in the same part, but I'm going to guess that they probably are. So, one thing is, if we approve curbside recycling, what's an effective date? In other words, when do all haulers that are going to provide curbside recycling have to be able to be up and running? My suggestion would be April of 24, because it's going to take them that long to get a truck. So, that would be the thing. As far as moving the recycling center, if the determination is that we need to keep it, we only have one place that we can put it, and that's the land that we own. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to go there. You're looking at a year or more to get recycling curbside up and going and see what that impact is. Even if you gave it 6 months, we don't know what's going to happen. The cheapest thing for the city is to just eliminate recycling and just go strict curbside. And that would be it. That would be the only option people get. That we would all have. I want to make a couple comments because a lot has been brought up about some of the other things. The shooting range, as liaison for the police department, I have asked the police department to put together in a nutshell, 2 options. What do you gotta have bare minimum to make it work? There's always been a shooting range in that pit. It's been there forever. It is now part of the sewer pond. So, and the spray field, the combination of both. So what do you really got to have? One, and if you were going to have it what would you like to have? I also said to the chief and to the sergeant, cause I've talked to the shooting range in Lakeshore, we could get them there's a chance we could get them, I know we can get them a membership there where they can use the range. They have to arrange that, with them. And they also have other options that they can use in Brainerd for the nicest thing about having a range has always been that I can do my cold weather, inclement weather, nighttime shoots when we're ready to do it. As a firearms instructor and armor from law enforcement in my day, that was always nice to be able to do. We always had to use Anderson's gravel pit, but there's other options available today, and I've heard nothing back yet about the range. The impound lot, yeah, you got to have a place to put a car. Sometimes you end up holding on to a car for a couple of years. And if you don't have a place to put it, you're going to be paying storage fees. So how much do they need? How often do they need it? I haven't got those answers back yet either. I believe that they were looking at some law changes that went into effect that changes how things are done today versus how they were done a few years ago. So those are both things that nobody's saying we're building those. But if we were to build them, what would they roughly run? Those are the numbers that are reflected here. Okay. As far as the recycling center goes, if the decision is that we're going to keep it, then we got one place we can put it. We don't own property anywhere else. Should it be open to the public or not? If it's not open to the public, we lose $35,000 from the county as of the way they're standing right now. There are other options. You don't have to go to Brainerd. You can go to Ideal Corners. They have the same thing there. Theirs is very limited as to the times you can go in and stuff. And I'm not sure if they're supplemented by the county or not, but anyway, so there's my position on it. At this time, anyone have any other questions for Tom? Okay. There was a comment made about the haulers are currently hauling 7 days a week from that site.
Yeah, in the summertime,
What's that?
in the summertime.
In the summertime, not now. Okay. Okay. If the council has nothing else, I will open it up for public comment. I ask that there's a 5-minute time limit. Please let's adhere to it. And that I know there's a lot of impassion from reading all the letters we got, but let's keep it polite and let's not throw any individuals under buses here. Okay.
And while anyone feel free to come up to the podium, I just wanted to state for the record that the council did receive 6 letters from the public. It was included in your packet and in the packet online. So.
Yes, they were. Yep.
And the council would like to thank all those that did actively reach out, engage with the city and try to voice their concerns, their opinions, their thoughts on the matter. Each one of those emails were read, were received, and we appreciate it.
Please just state your name and.
Tyler Gardner with Pequot and Gull Lake Sanitation. I just have a few simple things and then I'll let everybody else talk. One question I often ask when this comes up is why do you need to mandate recycling? If you eliminate the drop site here in Nisswa, do you have to have a mandatory policy for curbside? Or would you leave it up to the open market, the private haulers to decide if they want to be competitive and offer that? Recycling has grown substantially in our area in the last few years, especially. The curbside recycling has gone crazy. Most people are wish cyclers, as I call them. Like, I wish this could be recycled, so they throw it in the bin. A lot of it's junk, should not be recycled. My only thing is to think about, like I say, if you have to mandate curbside recycling. I know other cities do it. Pequot does it, Breezy Point, Cross Lake. Other than that, the fact that you're offering it for 70,000 a year, if that's all your haulers charging you, that's a good deal. Because I've seen what your recycling is here, so I feel like that price will go up substantially soon also. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Eric?
I just want to sneak up quick too. Eric Logie with Waste Partners. We're the current hauler they keep talking about. My dad and I started the company. He lives over on Twin Leaf, so he's a resident as well. Just real quick, points of clarification. You said that the haulers aren't willing to continue doing that. That's not true. We're still willing to do it 7 days a week. We just can't do it any more than 7 days a week. And of course, it all comes on the weekend, you know, so we'd have to be there 3 times a week on a Saturday or a Sunday, and 4th of July, well, all bets are off. So I just wanted to put that as a point of clarification. And then one other thing that was just mentioned as far as the mandating it. The reason we request that is because, just as Tyler mentioned, I mean, recycling, there's a significant amount of material. We pay $110 a ton, excuse me, I'm lying, 107.29 is the rate per ton of which our company pays to the recycling center to take our material. It's only 50 to throw it away. So the reason why we require that it is everyone has to do it is because, number one, state law does not allow me to charge more for recycling than what you'd get charged for trash altogether. I can break a piece of that out and not tax you for it. That's the incentive to recycling. So those who recycle actually have a cheaper monthly bill than those who don't recycle. But I can't charge a nickel more for it according to state law. So that's why we asked for that. And if a hauler didn't offer recycling and we did, we'd have to charge double. I mean, what they could, and we'd lose customer base because no one's going to want to pay for it. So those are the reasons why we ask that it be mandated for everybody. We just want to stay in a level playing field. So
Eric, I have a question for you. Do you happen to have top of your head, or maybe you actually have the right number? You're pretty precise with that rate per ton. Do you have a cost per ton as to what it costs to actually collect that?
yeah, so well, Tyler takes it the same place I do. Cass County Transfer Station is the only recycling location within 90 miles of where we're standing here today that will take recycling. And that material is very costly to transport because you can figure it out. It's real bulky. It's why we are talking about how some of the roads in Nisswa are very tough to get in with a recycling truck, because recycling trucks are large. They carry a lot of volume, but not so much weight. Some of the garbage trucks can be pretty small, but they don't take that kind of volume. They'd be full and have to dump 10 times a day. So, question again.
The cost rate
Is
per ton.
107.29 for any material outside of the county, outside of Cass County that take into the recycling center. I know what they get charged by Recycle America is where all the material goes.
Yep.
It's the largest recycling center in the state of Minnesota.
I guess I'll just clarify what
Yep.
I'm kind of seeking here, just so we can all understand. Are we breaking even at the cost of all this effort to recycle? Does it cost just as much to actually go through the process?
That's above my pay grade.
Fair enough.
So is that plastic bottle that gets taken worth taking it to the cities and doing that for? That's a question way beyond my pay grade.
Just wanted to see if you knew.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Real quick too, you also asked how much it went up. That was 15% over the last 2 years. It's not, and it was 10.1% in 2021 and 3.7% last year. It didn't grow at the same rate last year. Maybe that's because it's out of room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I've got the unenviable position of addressing the council and the mayor and concerned citizens about this recycling.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's just been great. I got phone calls at my home from people that are summer residents and people that are gone on spring break and people that are snowbirds that are gone this time of the year. And they're very concerned about this and pretty vocal about it. So I decided maybe in an effort to try to keep this more civil situation than the last meeting we had at the Public Works Committee, it might be easier if we get to one person. And I guess I'd like to say up front, I feel really bad that I feel like I'm being put and the public's being put in a bad position. It's kind of like being put at odds with the police department and the fire department. I'd like to thank them right now for their service and what they do. I think all of us, respect what that situation is. I can understand where the fire chief doesn't love to have this behind the building, and now I'm learning that we don't have room for it. I'm really enthused about my experiences with the mayor and the couple of council members that I talked to about these things ahead of time, that they were very cordial, very informational. I learned a lot. I guess you could say you just plain learn a lot about what's really going on with this setup. But there's some things that, I'd like to say on behalf of it. For one thing, I found it real unusual when I moved here 3 years ago or whatever, that you had this service. I thought it was so fantastic, I couldn't even believe it. I thought this is one of the few things in my entire lifetime that I got for tax dollars. Plow the road and you're going to take care of the garbage and the problems with messes in the woods and whatever we might have. And I've been around here either in Brainerd, Baxter, or Nisswa for 50 some years. And in past years and past times, this wasn't this clean a place. It's a very nice place. And unfortunately, it's been a tremendous thing that you did for the community, whether that's the citizens of Nisswa or the person that lives on North Long Lake that's 20 feet outside the city limits, to provide this service and a way to do this and keep the area clean. So everybody loves this. You found that out with your own your own survey. You found out that 80% of the people would love to have life continue as it is, but it just can't be. And it appears, I was going to read this whole letter that I wrote to you, but I'm not going to do that because you've answered some questions. First of all, you've decided to move this, so there's no sense in talking about leaving where it's at. And I've talked about, and something we all know, that everybody loves it. So the question is how to solve the problem of living with this. And in our particular neighborhood down in that Lower Roy Lake Road and Hazelwood Drive, it's a dense neighborhood of homes with somewhat of a mixture in Nisswa that's strange of businesses. And to me, if the entrance to that area that you decided to move this to in the future, if the curbside didn't work, which I don't think is a bad place to move it to at all. And I'm not sure after talking the things you've discussed, people here can come up with a better place for you to put it. Our request is that you don't put the entrance on Lower Roy Lake Road, where we're putting 400 to 1,100 cars, depending on the time of the year, and a bunch of garbage packers through our residential neighborhood when it's already overburdened with the new boat ramp that's sitting there. That's beautiful, terrific. Everybody's using it just like the recycle was, but now the usage is 40 times more boats than what it used to be when it was a little trail. And then you've got side-by-sides, four-wheelers, golf carts legalized in the city. So they use that Lower Roy Lake Road as how they get into town. You've done a wonderful thing because finally you're doing that trail. So that may eliminate the problem for a pedestrian in this situation, but it is not going to alleviate. I can't see any jurisdiction, or if the police chief were here tonight, I'd ask him, did he think it was a good idea to run more traffic for a commercial entity in a neighborhood community full of homes? It's just not a safe setup. When I talked to the mayor, he corrected me on how many blind intersects there are on Lower Roy Lake Road. I thought there were 9. He told me there were 11 or 12. So he's very knowledgeable. He even counts the stuff in the road around here. He's on the job. So, it just isn't a place for a whole bunch of garbage packers, a whole bunch of extra traffic that's already overburdened with Grandview Lodge and Mr. Stumble. I'm not picking on him in this letter. He was here long before I was. He's got a right to do what he's doing, but it doesn't excuse the fact that there's excavators, dump trucks, low boys, skid loaders. you name it, coming down that road, and Copper Creek doing the same thing. And if you put this other traffic with an entrance from that direction, the option was brought up was to try to figure out a way to afford some sort of an easement or land to come in from County Road 4077 in the future, if that's what you're going to do on a backage road. So I'm just asking the council to strongly consider that, because I think you've already made up your mind that you're going to go some sort of a route to try this curbside before you decide to go ahead and put that location over by the gravel pit. The other thing is, it appears to me that the major part of the cost of this whole project is not Eric taking his dumpsters and moving them from point A to point B. In fact, his father told me that they would do it for free. Yeah. He says, I'll do it for nothing. So the point is, yeah,
We will put that
That's
on
on
the
public
record.
record now.
I'm just
Meeting minutes.
I said the dumpsters, nothing else. So what I'm saying is that this thing keeps changing from 364 to 485 to $500,000 or whatever it is. I'm just wondering, if you do get in that fix, if you'd also consider not fencing the entire area and spending all kinds of money up front. Because if you were to move those dumpsters over there and put in a road to get there, which you can use in the future for whatever you need on city land, you then will go ahead and use the place. It's not fenced now. We're not spending a bunch of money on fencing and controls and gates with codes in it or whatever it is. And, you know, that may solve the problem if you aren't able to get by with the curbside that you've already made up your mind to do. As far as the shooting range and the portion about the impound, I did a lot of checking with other jurisdictions because I've been around here for a long time. I know the people in law enforcement are the people that are involved in this. And I'm trying to figure out how a police force that has 5 officers and a chief compared to another jurisdiction with 26 officers and a chief that doesn't have its own private shooting range, how that computes. They use the county sheriff's department. They use Bill's gun service. They've even used the shooting range on the back of Gull Lake for other stuff. I guess I look at it and I'm trying to justify it. When it comes to what I've been told by other jurisdictions, and I know everybody hates that when they live one place, they hate to have you compare it to someplace else, but where else would I go for information? So I went to one source in our area, the source that has about a 14,000 population and the 26 officers. And currently, because of the law changes in terms of when you can impound a car and when you can't, it went from lots of impounded cars in years past to all of a sudden 9 to 12 cars in that jurisdiction. So I don't know, because the chief is not here, we don't know what the impound is, but if it's 2 or 3 cars, that wouldn't take a very big gated area to do that. I mean, it seems to me that these big figures that are in here, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, must be shooting ranges, fences. I can't figure it out. I was a businessman for here or in Minneapolis or wherever for years. And it fails me to see where this money, where that amount of money comes from. So that's just the options or my observation or information. And I hate to see the era of that recycling thing go, but it appears that it's got to go for a while. For sure. That's what it looks like at this point. And the bad thing is everybody loved it. 80% wanted to keep using it. You know, it's just seems like an unfortunate deal, but please do not create more commercial traffic in a residential area. I can't imagine any jurisdiction, any police officer, chief, or whoever it is saying that that's a good idea with 10 or 11 intersects that are blind in that road, if you decide to use that site. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Roger? No, Roger, before Roger goes.
What was that?
Sorry, Jenny.
I didn't catch the gentleman's name, so I don't, as long as somebody knows, do you know his name, so I can put in the record?
Jeff.
Horn.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
One point I wanted to address, and I think this is pretty commonly understood by all. We have a huge influx of traffic of a wide variety of people coming up here in the summertime, and our fire department is pretty constrained with the ability for them to conduct normal operations, and Joe can attest to that better than anybody as the assistant chief. And we too thank our fire department and our police department for their services. We commend them, we applaud them continually, and we do our best to support them any faster we can. This is one of them. This is one of them because I would be hard pressed to go and attend the funeral for somebody that was delayed in receiving emergency services because we had a ride tourist or somebody from a town nearby coming to drop off their old TV or a couple bags of recycling at this location right behind the fire hall. It takes one time, and one time for us should be enough to determine that this is not a viable option, and it has to be changed. And that's why we're trying to be as preemptive as possible and look for a long-term solution. So thanks, Roger.
Mr. Mayor and council, thanks for taking the time to hold a public hearing tonight. Your agenda was amended tonight, and and it's because of the letters coming in, and I'm sure that you had heard that there's some concern about what happened at the Public Works Committee meeting last week. So I want to thank Jenny and whoever, the mayor, for making an amendment to tonight's agenda to allow us to come and hear what's going on with curbside recycling and with our current drop-off site. It's unfortunate that it seems that only two of us, Paula West and I, attend Public Works Committee meetings. That's where you people need to come. The last weekend, the last Wednesday of each month is where the Public Works Committee holds their meetings. And that's where Eric and the haulers come if there's any discussion that needs to come. And it's very frustrating. And we have the chairman of that Public Works Committee up here, Mark. And I would like, Mark, from moving forward, you and Tom figure out how you can make it more user-friendly for people to, especially now when it comes to recycling, to keep us informed, because it's going to be very important for those that are going to be considering curbside recycling, that they become educated. So it's not only the people on Royal Lake Road, Lower Royal Lake Road or Hazelwood, it's going to be important for all of us to understand how curbside recycling's going to happen. Okay, so I'm hoping I see an improvement in how you structure and how you inform the public on what happens at the Public Works Committee meetings. Okay. At the Public Works Committee meeting last week, which again only two of us attended, and this is where we learned that they were going to recommend that the recycling center be moved to Lower Royal Lake Road. That we felt that we were kind of blindsided by that event, and because Mr. Mayor, it was April 28th of last year. I don't know if did any of you show up last year at this time? It was the 28th, almost a year ago, that we came and you listened to us, and we made a plan at that point. And Jesse, what time did you come on the board. Were you here at the 28th, April 28th meeting?
That would have been my first meeting.
Okay, so, and Joe Hall was not here. So at that time, after you heard us, the mayor and the city council talked and you presented a plan. And thanks, Mark, for laying that out. There are a couple items that you forgot to include, besides the survey, looking for expansion, looking for downtown, and we also talked about possibly reconfiguring the current site we have now to make it more efficient. The other thing that we ask, and I think you guys brought it up, is to get the police department to help with traffic control during the nights, during the days that the fire department has their special training. Because it seems like when the fire department chief came up, that was a real convoluted time is recycling traffic was coming in during those sessions. And so I think they put up barricades, or I don't know if the police department helped, but we seem to solve an issue during those special events. Is that correct, Mark?
Right,
And-
we
and
had
Fred?
actually talked about during the interim while it's still there. As long as it's there, to be able to have it blocked off when the fire department needs to
Yeah,
do its.
Sure, they come in
training,
the back way.
because people just come over the road,
Okay.
over the grass everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so-
Actually,
Yeah.
hold on, time out. I'm the assistant fire chief also. The issue is not also during training. The issue is anytime we get a call, we have narrowly missed dozens and dozens of head-ons as we are leaving the station with lights and sirens because a recycler is taking a shortcut coming in the exit only area across the trail, where we've had to lock up the brakes on the trucks.
Mr.
And we come
This is-
in and out of there.
You're
at
giving
all
me
times.
5 minutes.
Okay.
I'm just addressing your comment to the fire
We'll
department.
You
allow
can
to-
make that correction, Mr. Hall, when I'm done, if you want to, but I would really like my time to make my presentation.
Please.
Thank you. Now I've lost my train of thought.
I know.
So anyhow, what I'm trying to say, Mayor and Councilman, that we kind of had a plan last year at this time, you know? And then all of a sudden, last week, we learned that, we're gonna move everything out to Lower Roy Lake Road before discussing it like we're doing tonight. So anyhow, I'm just saying, I'm kind of frustrated with how the Public Works Committees are set up, meetings are set up. I did address a couple of things in regards to the curbside ordinance that is needed. I suggested that the draft, which is in now, be sent to all of the haulers, so that all of the haulers, whether they be garbage or recycling or both, understand what the city of Nisswa is doing. And I think that's important, and not just have them, go to the website and look at it. Mr. Mayor, I would like to see that. I think it's appropriate that all the haulers that work in the city receive an ordinance so that they know what's going on.
Correct. Yeah. I read that. I saw that as well, Roger. And I believe that would be the intent that we would have.
Okay, very good. And I, as far as the draft goes, it's, I would have liked to seen an education requirement in that that the haulers have to help educate the consumer on how to do curbside. That is not currently in the draft ordinance. And there are other draft ordinances that have an
Correct.
educational requirement. So
That's
I
how you
would
mentioned
like
that
to see
as
that.
well. Yeah.
So, but I don't know what time, when the city attorney is going to be reviewing it, but I would hope that would be added also. So I'm also.
I know you were interrupted, Roger, but if we could have you kind of wrap it up.
Okay, so,
Thanks.
well, this is the
No,
only time.
I understand.
and-
No, that's not a problem.
Okay, so I don't want to be pushed here because I think these are important things. We get very little time to talk about.
Yeah, I know.
This is an important issue here.
Yep.
So the other thing that I think is really important, Mr. Mayor, is that we construct a timeline for especially the curbside ordinance program.
That is
Which
our
is not.
intent. That
It's-
is our intent.
Okay, well, that, I'm assuming that will be done at the Public Works committee level?
A timeline to implement it or?
Well, no, just identifying the time. What's going to happen between now and when you're projected to implement a curbside program? All the events that are going to take place.
Right.
I think that has to be identified and just not all of a sudden, whoops, we're going to start the curbside tomorrow. So I think that there needs to be a real thought out timeline.
I
on-
think you'll have that answer before you're gone tonight.
Okay, very good. I guess those are the important things that I want to bring out tonight that I feel that the public should know.
And to add to what Roger's saying to the folks in the public, if you have questions, call City Hall. Ask for Tom, ask for Jenny, ask staff with your questions up front too. Ask them. They're here to serve. That's what we're here to do. So please don't hesitate to do that, to call in with questions. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna close public comment and we're gonna move on this. Okay, one more. Okay. If you could just please state
Yeah, just don't interrupt me.
your name.
I'm kidding. Okay, I'm Ellen Fussy and I'm a resident here. I live down East Roy Lake Road, well, actually Birch Ridge Drive. Lived there for 27 years. My main concern, I have two main concerns and I'll try to be quick on this. My first main concern is the traffic. Grandview in the summer, all my people here know that when we're driving down that road coming from either using Grandview facility or whatever, going to Bar Harbor, coming home, any given day, there could be emergency because people who stay at Grandview think it is a bike trail. Or they walk their kids there and it's very dangerous. Jesse talked about not going to a funeral about somebody when they're backing out from fire truck. I can't believe there hasn't been somebody killed in my 27 years. And so that's gonna create more traffic, moving the recycling. That was my first point. My second point is I'm a little bit unclear, and I don't know if I'm the only slow former FIAD teacher here, but this ordinance, you're saying that you're going to do this is pickup recycling ordinance. Are you mandating that every household in the city recycles? I mean, I'm not, okay, that was not very clear.
No.
Okay, so if we
haven't
choose
fully
to,
discussed. Yeah.
if we choose to, is that the ordinance you're going to discuss?
Yeah, the only mandate on an ordinance is that anyone who wants to haul garbage, any commercial hauler in the
Okay.
city has to be willing to offer that service.
Oh, I
Okay?
understand.
That's what that.
Depending what hauler you
Yeah,
use.
Yeah, you
Okay,
don't have
okay,
to do
All
that.
right.
And a hauler doesn't have to do it either.
Okay.
If they choose not to, but then they can't haul in the city.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay, and then I have one more question. I want to, if you could enlighten me on the process of how you're going to determine whether you're going to move the recycling out to Lower Ray Lake Road, and do you have to provide that service? I think it's a great service, but what's the option of saying, I'm sorry, if you live in the city, we don't have recycling? I mean, is that an option?
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, we could eliminate that altogether. Yeah.
so that would save you $35,000 a year.
Correct.
Would save
Okay.
all of us.
Yeah,
Every
well,
citizen
all
here
right,
would
I
save.
understand, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying you're talking,
Yeah.
I don't work
It
with
would
your budget.
save our
You
budget
do.
35,000 a year.
Okay,
If we maintain the facility, regardless of where it's at.
Yes.
But we close it to the public,
okay,
then we'd have to come up with the full 70,000.
okay. So
Because the
how
county
is it going to be
won't.
determined if you're going to move it to Lower Roy Lake Road?
That'll have to be a council decision at the time. I don't believe that we have a time frame right now.
Okay,
Okay, we don't have that. The best of my knowledge, there's no time frame.
okay,
Okay, but it would be something we would have to decide, and it would not be able to take place until we knew the actual dollar amounts we're talking about here.
okay.
And
And the public
exactly
would be,
everything that's going to be done.
and we'd be notified be
Yes,
prior.
and those would be things that would be getting discussed at the Public Works Committee level.
Mhm.
And one thing that I've said this so many times is if you go on to our website, the
Mhm.
city website, you can sign up for notifications for all or whichever departments you wish to be notified and kept up to date on.
Okay.
So, for example, if you sign up for updates from Public Works and say planning and zoning, whenever something is coming up, a meeting date, a special meeting,
Mhm.
minutes are posted, agendas are posted, you will get a notification on either whatever device you set it up for.
Mhm.
Could be email, it could be text message or both. Okay.
Perfect.
And you
Okay.
will get notified that that's there. So then you know, oh, what's up? You open it up and it'll say this page has been updated and you can pull it up and you can see what it is. And that can keep you informed as to
What's happening?
basically what
Okay.
those committees and what the city is doing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fuzzy.
Okay.
All right, I just say one quick, I'm very quick.
Yep, sir, not a problem.
I do.
What's your name?
Clinton Stropper, Nisswa resident for 7 years. I do think that safety is the #1 issue. I can say honestly, I walk my children, 2 children down the road all the time. I'm at Lower Royal Lake Road, and I have almost hit people on that road, coming over, maybe going a little too fast, maybe not, but those hills and the bikes and the families literally think this is a backcountry road that come from Grandview. I mean, they ride down the middle of the road,
Yeah.
20 deep, and you literally have to stop until they all realize, and then the little kid that you think's not gonna go on the road doesn't pay attention and goes, and you slam on your brakes. And I would just hate nine blind intersections, even with the path. I mean, that path's still gonna be going right through those tree areas, and kids are gonna be flying down it. There's gonna be that. Also, if you think about that $35,000, how many houses are in Nisswa proper?
No.
Don't know? I mean, I just think that if you're not gonna offer a free service here, can you not take that 35,000 and subsidize it to the same hauler that you're already paying? Therefore, if they want to go with that service, it'll maybe be at a lesser rate, still a little bit out of your pocket, but it would have no effect on what the city's paying. And if they want to individually do it, you would have the ability to do so. It wouldn't cost the city anymore. Haulers still get their money, they can offer it, maybe like $3 or $4 more, $5 more dollars as opposed to paying for all the recycling up front. So I do think there are other options. Please do not put that on Lower Lake Road. It's just gonna be a matter of time before there's gonna be an accident. And there's already too much traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Clinton.
Okay, so we're gonna close public comment and then we got 2 items in front of us. One is curbside recycling ordinance. Now, understand that the ordinance needs to be published, and Jenny, you wanna?
I'll give
Yeah.
a little bit of a picture for the council for that. So there is a draft ordinance that was reviewed and recommended by the Public Works Committee. In order to bring it to the city council, we have to publish a notice of a public hearing in the newspaper, 10 days requirement, and we do need to do some work to get it in, I'll say, proper form for council. Just proper city code requirements that we'll need to do, and we'll want to make sure the city attorney has reviewed that. So we can have that ready for you in April, if you would like that to be presented to the council. At that point, you can hold the public hearing, get any feedback from the public, and then you can choose to adopt the ordinance if you choose. You can do it subject to a future effective date. If you'd like to set that effective date, January 1 next year, April 1 of the following year, whatever that is, you can do that. So that would allow haulers the time to say this ordinance will be effective on this date, and whatever they need to do to prepare during that time, they can do that. So
So we would have to wait till April to pass it, or can we go?
Yes, it is. It was not in your packet tonight. It's not ready for the council,
So
so
you don't need anything from us on that tonight, other than you want to know if the council is,
I would like a motion from the council that you would like to bring that ordinance to the council for a public hearing in April, if that is your choice, or whenever.
Yep.
But I think that direction is important to have.
I will entertain a motion to that effect.
I so move.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, the next item is the relocation of the recycling center to the city gravel pit. at a date to be determined. We don't know when that will happen. I mean, we have no clue. I mean, we're probably talking, well, I personally would like to give curbside recycling a chance before we would move it, but you know.
Also, I would think that since we're putting in the Gulf Trail late too, or the trail.
Yeah.
We don't want to do it during then
No.
either. So this will take, it's going to take time anyway, so.
Jenny, would it be advisable for us to, instead of making a motion to approve or deny this, to table this until
April.
a determined date? Perhaps
Well,
by,
if we table it, we have to bring it up next month, correct?
or if
No.
we give you a date in mind?
We just need a date. You can table it until, pick your date, you know, or.
Let's then,
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that we go to the same exact timeframe in which you're recommending the curbside pickup be implemented, which would be April of 24. That would be
Oh, okay.
my thought.
Okay, that's a thought. Anyone else?
And then we'd have to have time to see how it works out. So,
Okay, how about this then?
Well,
Well, I think the idea is, I mean, we know it needs to move. So at least we're agreeing that it moves. Then the next question is, do we cancel it? Do we not even do it?
Okay,
if we
you know.
agree that it needs to be moved, we're still not stipulating where it's being moved to. I mean, we can even say, look, the only place we can move it right now, if we're gonna move it, is the gravel pit. That's the only piece of property we own. But in a year to 2 years from now, who knows? We might have a completely different. The county might even back out. We don't know.
right. So then perhaps just to solve two problems here, perhaps we get rid of the recycling drop-off facility behind the fire hall, mitigate that issue, and table this until however many potential months after the curbside has been implemented.
Well, you
I
can't, you
wouldn't
don't
get
want to
rid
get
of
rid
it.
of it until curbside is
No.
implemented.
I would just say you continue with it right now, the way it is. And then meanwhile, we have to do, we're going to say it's going to be moving, but we don't have a timeline.
Correct.
Mhm.
Joe's got some.
Go ahead. Joe.
Question is, but we do have a timeline. The current site can't continue the volume. That is determined in our timeline. So we can't sustain where it's at. And so that's directing the timeline. So if we want to make a motion to approve the curbside and get rid of it behind City Hall at that time, I think that would be appropriate. If between now and then, we want to determine, do we really want this in town or don't we want this in town? That's the question. Do we even want this or don't we? And so at this point, we want curbside to go forward. And when curbside is implemented, we still have to get that out of the current location because it's just making a mess back there and there's not enough room. And that's the timeline we're up against.
We've already approved that we're moving forward with the curbside. So that's
Yes.
done.
Right.
Okay,
So do we even want to offer, the next question is, do we even want to offer this? I think that's the question we got to ask ourselves first.
but if you, to Mark's point, Mark Euthinger's point, you can't close it. We're gonna have to offer recycling until curbside is up and running. And we need to give vendors a chance to actually be able to get it up and running.
Right.
Because they're not,
Correct.
they don't have the vehicles and it's gonna be 12 to 14 months for them to get a vehicle. And that's probably being optimistic. But, and if it's not, if a vendor doesn't have the vehicle within that time frame, we can work with them on that. That's not, I mean, it's not their fault. If the company isn't building them, they're not building. What can you say? So we need to offer recycling until curbside is up and running. And then once curbside is up and running, we can come back to your point, Joe, and make that determination. But where do we offer recycling other than where it's at until that point?
Correct. We're saying the same thing. I'm not saying close it before curbside. I'm just
Okay,
saying.
all right, I guess
tonight,
that's what I must have misunderstood.
No, we could make a decision that once curbside is up and going, that then it gets closed in its current location.
You could,
Yes.
you could in theory, just after the 2024 season, which would be, I mean, essentially the end of the year,
Yeah.
2024.
So
And then that gives time, if there's other options that come forward in
Right.
between now and then,
So could
you
we,
can.
do
you
we
can
want
that.
to make that a motion, or do we want to table this aspect of it until then?
I would make
You've
it a
got to give,
motion.
you've got to give the curbside a
You
chance.
can't.
I want to take the advantage of the opportunity, which having our two carriers in the room here. Do I need to reopen public comment, or can I ask them to come to the
If they
podium?
would- If one of them or both of
Eric,
them would wish to come up.
My question for waste management in particular, and then this can hand them to yourself too, Tyler. Partners.
Oh, third rail.
You'll have my resignation tomorrow. So for both of you gentlemen and both of your companies, I want to understand what your actual timetable is for. What do you have for capacity right now? And if you do not have the capacity to be able to, capacity meaning the equipment, the manpower to be able to accommodate this alongside your current schedules, is this something for curbside? Is this something that's going to be able to be accommodated in a 12-month window starting end of this month?
I would say for our company, yes, we're already doing it everywhere. The big thing is the bins. If 500 of your residents call for recycling carts, I've got trucks. We've got garbage trucks that single stream's the big thing anymore these days. I hate it, but it's part of what our world is. We can use the garbage truck to collect recycling. It's just you need bigger ones. Anyway, 12 months is a doable process. Your carts are typically out somewhere in the area of anywhere from 6 to 25 weeks, depending on the demand at the particular, over the last year, it's varied that much. Trucks are a different thing. I just ordered a truck, it's 2.5 years out. And so some of those things, can you use just about any truck? Yes. Most of us will get it done in a year if that's what you give us. My gut tells me I could do it in 3 months.
Okay, same for yourself?
Similar, we're a little smaller operation than what Eric has, so trucks wise, we don't have as many trucks. I would likely be able to get it done. I mean, honestly, tonight is the first night I've given it any thought.
Yeah.
Mayor Ryan reached out to ask me about it. We could, I think a year is just fine. Most of the time, we're not given that much notice when the change is made, so I think a year is actually
How
generous.
soon do you think you could? If he's saying 3, do you think you could do it quicker than a year?
I would start working on it in 3, start trying to implement it, but it would take me probably a year to get to where everything is running.
Okay,
So if we decided in April, this comes before us with the ordinance and we decide, okay, we're going to start December 1st of 2023. Is that doable for either of you?
Doable for me to start working on it. I mean, to start offering it, but
Right. Okay. So, right. But I understand it'll take a while. I mean, we're running into the same problems with the city.
what if we were, Jenny, to say to both our proof carriers for the city, no later than April of 24, April 1st of 24. But if you can do it sooner,
Well, of course, if they could
Do
do
it.
it sooner, they could do that.
and then we will establish a timeline for the city, the residents of the city in Nisswa to be able to be then notified that there will be this service offering for your select carrier. We'll have an obvious understanding of when your timeline is. I think that's solving an immediate issue where we're gonna be able to start taking care of this. Then we may be able to start removing some of this to then appease the fire department and their major safety concerns. And that kind of solves
I think
some of
that's-
both issues.
I think
You
that's
like
pretty
that?
much what we're looking at,
Okay.
April, a year.
Well,
thing.
but let's
if they
just say
can get it,
waste,
but there's nothing stopping them. The main thing I would like to make sure that we give all our vendors an opportunity to actually get what they need. If they can do it faster, great.
right.
No,
And I
but
think
nothing's
we
stopping
both
them from
could.
doing soon.
we both could. I have one more little unsolicited advice or
Okay.
opinion. Where was I going with that now?
I don't know.
was on something I'll come back to it. Go ahead, Eric.
I'll sell them a truck. No, the thing that why we wouldn't implement sooner would be the price competitive thing. The cost of providing it before your competition is doing it, what I will need to charge once recycling is mandated versus not. That gets troublesome if you had 50 people in your community be one thing. You have 500 that would do it, be another. That's a drain monthly on whoever's offering it ahead of time. So that's part of that. One of the suggestions I would make is if you were going to be worried about volume at the location, because that is what we're up against. We're up against the volume problem there. You have a lot of commercial material being brought there that may be just like a few extra cardboard containers out at the one location where we could just do it once a week for your commercial accounts. If we can get that word out so that's where a lot of your volume is coming from, is your commercial locations that aren't utilizing their own containers for recycling, primarily cardboard. I see them. I've got a camera system there. I see the vehicle names on the sides of them backing up and filling up 3 dumpsters, you know. One suggestion that's where the volumes is coming from. That is probably some of your problem. So
I remember now, I think you were heading this way, but this is not from a hauler standpoint. I would not offer recycling drop center if you're going to mandate curbside. That's an extra cost that I personally wouldn't want to pay. I mean, as a resident, if I want to recycle and I know I can get it at my curb, why would I not do that? So I think that's money that doesn't need to be spent.
And last thing on that, we have talked, again, this is a year and a half or a year in the process, and yet there's going to be some residents we can't service with a recycling truck.
I'm one of them.
We've gone through that. So
Yeah.
there's some roads you have here, they will not have recycling opportunities unless you have another little location for them. But again, that's not my problem. That's yours. So.
Okay.
I
Thank
just,
you.
I just don't recycle anymore.
So with that,
You could pick a date to, and let's say April of 2024, you could pick that as the date you would determine your closing date for the location.
to do that.
So at least,
Yeah, that the recycling center would be still there at the current location till April of 2024. After that, it shall be either moved or eliminated.
I'll second that.
is that a motion from Mark? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make that motion.
Beautifully put.
Yes. All right. So, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Okay,
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, Public Works, purchase of 2 aluminum lawn tractor trailers. These are for the lawnmowers, correct, Tom? And other, actually.
Right, small equipment.
Yeah,
And they're just, we have them on a regular rotation to replace them. And it's their time.
I'll make a motion to approve Public Works purchase 2 aluminum lawn tractor trailers
As presented.
as presented. Yeah, I was just looking at the total cost. I saw it, but I didn't
Second.
presented.
And I'll second that.
total cost of $13,047.72.
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shoreland ordinance revisions, Bethany.
So Bethany, this was a slight read of, I lost count at 390 pages of what I was going
Yeah.
through.
I did supply you with a bit of information, so.
I wanted to commend you. I know we gave you a big task and an ask to do this. What you did, in my opinion, was wonderful. I mean, something that we've needed. I just want to thank you.
Thank
I
you.
can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Mayor Ryan and City Council. Last May 17th, the City Council asked city staff to review and revise Chapter 20, Land Use and Development as recommended by the Planning Commission. The city contracted Chris Pence to conduct a review and provide necessary revisions to Chapter 20 in regards to residential shoreland. The proposed is the culmination of those efforts. Included in your packet, in all of those pages, was a markup copy of Chapter 20 that throughs what is being removed and underlines additions. Following that is a clean copy that reflects all of Chapter 20 being proposed for adoption. Next, I included the copy that the DNR provided their initial review comments on. Hopefully you noted that this is an older version of the ordinance, as does not accurately reflect the markup or the clean versions, but it does show the DNR comments and instructions, some of which have been completed already and some that will be completed in future revisions. The bulk of all revisions are related to residential shoreland, and future review and revision of other areas such as PUD, commercial uses, resorts is necessary as documented in the conditional approval received from the Minnesota DNR. On March 7th, 2023, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended that the City Council approve Chapter 20 as presented and conditioned by the DNR. Should the City Council approve this adoption of the proposed, within 10 days, the DNR will need to be sent the adopted ordinance. The DNR will then conduct a final review, and if everything is satisfactory, we will receive their final approval at that time. I would like to take a moment to say thank you for this opportunity. I think it's been a wonderful to be able to provide consistency and transparency to the property owners here in Nisswa, along with the developers, to help them meet statutory obligations, to protect our natural resources, and to begin the work to have our ordinance reflect our comprehensive plan. If you have any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions, Mark? Mark?
No. I have none.
Joe?
Yes, I do have a couple questions.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you for this. For the most part, everything's great in it. However, there are a couple things that are in this ordinance that you do not find in any other ordinances in the county or with any other jurisdictions that I can find in our area. One of them being with the structure sizes for principal residential structure size requirement. It's limiting the square footage to 4,500 square feet without a or it requires a conditional use permit. Also too, with the garage size in there. This is an ordinance, or this is a rule that the county doesn't have. Pequot, Baxter, Cross Lake, nobody that I can find has such a restriction on a building. And I just ask, I know Chris Pence also just rewrote Cross Lakes. He was also at the county. So this is something coming internal from Nisswa. And why do we have that? Why do we need it? We already have lot size setbacks, pervious coverage with our 15, 20, 25%. Why are we doing this at 4,500 square feet? It really doesn't make any sense to me.
Did you inquire with Bethany about it or?
Yeah. And she said, it's something that we could talk about. And she said, yeah, that there are other when we had spoke about it, that there are other limiting factors. But it's up to us as a council to decide if we want this in there or not. So that's why I bring it forward. What does everybody else think on this? And also too, getting a conditional use permit, then somebody wants to build a 4,600 square foot house rather than over the counter permit, then it puts them into approximately a 3-month time period to get on the agenda with public works with planning and zoning to get a permit then. Also a great time delay in a construction process. And I don't think this is necessary for our city, our town, and I don't see this anywhere else.
If I could take a moment to speak to Councilman Hall's concerns.
Please.
The section that he's referring to is section 2083. It is the principal residential structure size requirements. It requires that residential dwellings exceeding 4,500 square feet, including attached storage areas, on less than 2.5 acres require a conditional use permit where reasonable conditions may be placed. And also, Councilman Hall, I just want to state for the record that this was a portion of the ordinance that was not looked at nor reviewed during our ordinance review and revisions. This is a portion that affects all of Nisswa, not just shoreland. So the bulk of all of our proposed changes have to do with residential shoreland. As far as Section 2083, it does not clarify if that 4,500 is a livable area or if that is ground cover. So it obviously needs revision and clarification in that sense. I'd be happy to take a look at anything that you would like me to take a look at. I do believe that it would need to go to the Planning Commission and have public hearing so that the public could comment and we could put it through that process. As far as what conditions would be reasonable, as it says, there's no reason that that couldn't just be written in. I personally, if somebody was coming and they were going to ask to build a 6,000 square foot home, what would you condition? I can't think of much more other than vegetative screening or stormwater concerns. We're not in the business of telling people what they can side their houses with. We're not in the business of telling them what kind of architectural design they're going to build their home. So I can only see maybe those two, maybe there's more. It would need further research, but any concerns that anybody would have could potentially be written in the ordinance as well. So there are different avenues. There are many things that we can do. However, that was not part of the scope of the proposed.
And I think that with any proposed change, just like really for anything we do, this can be addressed through each individual commission and then presented to the council for the next upcoming council meeting. So for the bulk of the work that's gone into getting this done on the planning side, and me being the liaison and working with Bethany on this, again, I commend you for this tedious task. And thanks for the free naps I got from reading all this at home. But it is important. And there's ramifications that come from this that are good and that are modern for what we're going through here and what our area has already incurred, right? So I think proposed changes in which, or recommendations, including what Councilman Hall would have, perhaps can be brought to the Planning Commission on the 4th of this upcoming month, and then brought to council in April.
Absolutely.
Just to see progress, because a lot of effort's been made to get this progress to where we're at today, more or less. So that'd be my recommendation.
Yeah, I just feel like it's something that needs looked at and addressed. You know, if we're going to change this, it was in there and it was written in there. One other thing that maybe just needs clarification is along with this, it's part of it, the 2,500 square feet for an auxiliary structure. It's 2,500 square feet total, but it says not with inside the OHW. But does that include or exclude an orientated water auxiliary structure of 120 square feet? Would that be part of your 2,500, or would the 120 be above the 2,500? That's just not clear in that area.
Could you clarify where in the ordinance you're referring to?
Yes, table 20-21 for the auxiliary structures. Setbacks and a limitation on auxiliary structures. I'm just wondering if the 2,500 square feet, is that part of a orientated water structure also, or can you have a 2,500 square foot, let's say garage, and also a 120 square foot building?
I apologize. I've spent the last year memorizing different numbers. Now they've all changed. And then they all changed again when I went through and renumbered everything. So I think that you're referring to the accessory structures and the tables that are listed for accessory structure size, setback, and permit requirements.
It's not the table, it's written in the accessory structure definition of the 2,500 square feet.
Okay, so setbacks and size limitation, where it says the cumulative square footage of all detached accessory structures on a residential property may not exceed 2,500 square feet. And you're asking if water-oriented accessory structures would be included in that total?
Correct.
It would be my understanding that they would be.
That they would be, even though that these have to be outside of the OHW and a water structure can be inside of it?
Correct. So a water-oriented accessory structure meeting all requirements can be placed within the SIZ where other structures cannot be. Structure meaning both a patio or a structure building or a combination thereof, but cannot exceed 120 square feet. If
Right,
that
and so
100
I would,
Sorry, go ahead.
well, I would just read that as opposite because it says, an auxiliary structure cannot be in that area. But yet we're gonna count the building that can be in that area against the building that cannot be in that area. So for that matter, the definitions are contradictory.
If I may, this is something that we can fix, correct? If there needs to be a fix, but it would be something.
Yeah, I was just,
Okay, this is why,
Just-
because I don't know it's even later where you're at. But I don't mean to interrupt you, Joe, but this is why it's important to have these conversations with staff ahead of time, because if there's something that we need to table or not, and I see your point. If, but I believe I did talk to Bethany about a couple things too, and this is going to be a continual look at thing. There's gonna be stuff that comes up and P and Z will have to weigh in on, and you guys will, so.
yeah, I guess, we just need to sit down and set a time to do this, we've. I've brought this up publicly and, and several times I've asked Bethany about it. But, my point is, if we're gonna make a motion to move ahead with this ordinance, I think that we're 97% of the way there. Why don't we get 100% of the way there? There's just a half a dozen things like this that I think need corrected. And
they can be.
Right. I guess I just wondering what the process for that's going to be then.
Actually, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of work that has been done here, and there's that 97% that you refer to has already is needed to have in place. And that 3% can always be made adjustment later on. Talking directly with Bethany, I think it's more appropriate to do it at that time and then bring the final recommendation from staff for that final 3% later.
Yep.
So I would go ahead and approve this right now.
And make motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the planning commission and the shoreline ordinance revisions as presented.
Can you also add, please, subject to the DNR conditions? Is that what you need, Bethany?
Yes, the motion needs to include that you approve the adoption of chapter 20 as presented and conditioned by the DNR.
As stated.
I'll second.
Okay, any final discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bethany.
Sorry, I also need one more. I need a motion to publish the summary ordinance in the newspaper.
Oh, the summary.
I make a motion to publish the revised shoreline ordinance.
Summary ordinance in the
summary
newspaper.
ordinance In the newspaper.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks, Bethany. Next item on the agenda is the yeah, approval of the 2023 contracted fire service agreements. You want to queue it up, or is there anything anyone wants? Ed, you want to have questions?
Nothing out of the ordinary from year to year. There's just the new contracts. Contracted areas, we all met. Everyone was supportive of the request. We have not heard any concerns back from the respective boards that they went to. So I believe everything is ready to go.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we accept the fire department budget and 2023 fire contracts as presented.
I'll second.
Oh, sorry. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Support of statewide policies and resources for the mental health and PTSD prevention and treatment.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. So this item I have for you tonight is for your consideration. to approve a model resolution that would support legislation that is moving through both the House and the Senate to help establish improved processes and mechanisms for public safety duty disability. As you know, the city of Nisswa had gone through this process with a duty disability claim a couple years ago, and there was a lack of process, for lack of a better way to say that. And there was typically not state funding that is consistently available to cities when something like this happens. And so the legislation is moving forward. It has garnered significant support throughout various groups of organizations. I have the list here, including counties, cities, chiefs of police, labor groups, state patrol, fire departments, fire chiefs association, state retirement system, public employees retirement system. And it's really great legislation. It's been a couple years in the making, but it establishes statewide funding for this so that those costs don't rest with the city when that happens, reimbursing employers for costs and providing a treatment mechanism for public safety employees, which is also very important and needed. And so I'd be happy to answer questions. I look for your consideration to support this, that we can send to our legislators to show that we support this.
Go ahead.
So this is just to support, we want them to make it a statewide.
Yes, you want them to
Policy.
adopt legislation
Adopt
to
this, yeah.
support these efforts. Yes.
Okay,
I'd like to say thank you for testifying in support of this bill on behalf of the city and all those that are going to be needing this help. I personally know many vets from the military and various public service roles that do suffer from PTSD, and it's a real problem. I've lost friends that have served overseas due to that. So thank you for going out on your own and doing this on the city's behalf as well. So I'd like to make the motion to approve the resolution supporting statewide policies and resources for public safety, mental and physical injury education, prevention and treatment as presented.
and I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Parks resolution to support a request of ENRTF funding.
About time you talk after being here for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Legs are numb. Peter tingling. Yes, thank you. So just to clarify a couple of things, this is to request grant funding for the Gull Lake Trail, the remaining section on 77. We're looking at potentially a 2025 construction if awarded these funds, and we're estimating the cost to be about 900,000 at that time. So this resolution is just to put our name in the hat and apply for this funding. We are not putting in any matching dollars. We are not listing matching dollars, and this will be just Nisswa, not a partnership with Lakeshore. So this is only the half-mile section on 77. This will be our final section.
Does that just go right up to the city line then?
The county line, yes.
Is there matching funds requested, or would it make a difference?
It
I
is
guess?
advantageous to put in matching dollars.
Okay, I think, well,
How advantageous?
Hard to
Oh, come on.
quantify.
We don't know if there's a point system or a rating.
No, it doesn't
Okay.
show like the grading point scale or anything.
Do we have a backup plan if we don't get this?
Keep
Throwing-
trying.
All right.
Will this all run on city, or I mean, county right away?
Yes,
Yes.
there's a few easements. So I do have a little bit of funding in there that would
Okay.
go towards that, as well as we have to identify if there is a land acquisition component as part of the funds, which adds more to the to-do
Yeah.
list.
Got it.
Backup could be with the other parks projects conversation, could potentially be grouping that into those conversations
Mm.
if
Yep.
we don't get that. So
Then I'd like to, if it's so appropriate, make a resolution or make a motion to accept the resolution supporting the request for ENRTF funding for $900,000 to construct a half mile of paved multi-use trail as part of the Gull Lake Trail.
Okay,
I second.
further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
There. Okay. We're gonna be going into closed session here then.
We have
We
10.
still have 10. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. Thank you. Reviewing the code of conduct.
We got it right here. Is that it?
No, that
No.
is the
There it is. Thank you. I don't know why it wasn't in my
review
packet.
process, yes.
That's it. No, yes, that's it. Oh, that is it. Oh, I mixed it up. Okay, next item is recommendation or a review and update of the city code of conduct policy. Jenny?
Thank you. So you will note in the draft provided to you that most of the sections remained as is. There may have been a couple of small wording change recommendations, but the bulk of it was adding language within the council member liaison role perspective. That my impression was that it would be helpful to provide clear guidance on how our current processes work and our current language that we have in our personnel policy with respect to our personnel committee, specifically kind of what the role is with that and how the process would be to go through a process, how a matter gets brought up, who it goes to, and then the sequence with that. So I attempted to try to clarify and provide an additional detail for each department because each department's different. And so it's not a one size fits all. This is what happens when you're a liaison because it really can depend on the department. But I open it up for questions, comments, feedback. I didn't get any specific feedback, which is fine. But I'm happy to talk through it and take your edits and we can go from there.
I liked what you did.
Thank you.
I guess my comment on it is I guess maybe I'd like to see this tabled and discussed, in April when we have our sit down in regards to relationships with liaisons, communication, stuff like that. I think it's a good start. I don't know if we have the time tonight that I would like to see dedicated to diving into the meaning behind some of it more right now. So I guess that's what I would like to see is just let's discuss this further in April at our workshop.
If we do table it tonight, I would say that it would be imperative if anyone has questions from a council position is get with Jenny, ask, sit down, make a time to sit down and go through it, those questions with her. That way we can, it might be a miswording. It might be something that we're just missing or not, or it might be a misunderstanding on like my part. I might not understand something. So try and sit down with them before we do that. That's if we table it today, but so Councilman Hall would like to see it tabled. Anyone else? What's their flavor? What's our desire?
I don't have any opinion either for or against tabling it. So if we want to take some more time to review it and discuss any potential issues to address, sure. This isn't stopping like the Gull Lake bike trail. So I'm good with it.
Well, I'll make a motion to table until our workshop.
So till the April 17th retreat.
Correct, the retreat. Thank you.
Or
I said workshop.
No, well, that's fine. I'm making sure.
It's a retreat.
Sorry. Okay. My only last comment is just, again, make sure that if you have questions, get with the city administrator on those so we can maybe expedite. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this will be tabled. Now, we're coming up on our closed session. Before we do that,
Do we need?
council members, do you have anything?
No. No, I do not.
Joe?
No.
Okay. I don't either, so, can I get a recommendation?
I'll make a motion to,
Well, okay, go
oh,
ahead.
no, go ahead, no.
Yeah. I was gonna say, we want to take a couple minutes to place clear out.
Well, we
Make
have
the
to,
motion.
we have to read
You
this.
have to read
as-
the motion
as-
and go,
So-
yep, do that first.
Okay, Jesse's got it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion as a recommendation from the city attorney to continue closed session from the March 13th, 2023 meeting agenda as continued on the record at that meeting pursuant to Minnesota statutes 13D 0.05 subsection 3C for consideration of offer for property purchase.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're in closed session.
Thank you for coming and
Yeah.
thank you for staying.
Yep, Joe, we'll have to stop this meeting and then we'll tee up the next one.
Okay.
Okay.